like, how do you think this world was created?
I don't think it was created.
Um, so, however you want to word this, how did you think this world came here? Like, why are we like,
Didn't. It just always was. That's my personal opinion.
what the heck? So, if you, how do you think that it was just always was?
You could ask you the same question. How does God just always exist?
Because the God, that's different.
Why
Because
is it
God
different?
is because that would if we were to understand what like the way God is created and how he operates, if we were to have that same level of understanding, we wouldn't be God. That's what makes God so great. And so if God had a beginning, he wouldn't be
Okay.
powerful.
Well, I don't understand why the universe has always existed, but it does make sense to me that it does. Like,
Why do you
like
believe that? Like what gives you that
hold on,
evidence?
saying that you understand how the power works makes the power go away is absurd. Like, does Joe Biden have any less power as the president of the United States just because I know the rules he's allowed to operate by? I mean, he's clearly more
Well, I'm
powerful than I
asking.
am. His power doesn't diminish just because I
Yeah,
know how it works.
but God's different
Why is it
than
different? Why
Joe
why does
Biden.
knowing how it works
Because he's
diminish
not
the
human.
awe of the function?
He's not a flawed human being.
Sure, he's not a flawed human being. Okay, whatever. That doesn't mean that if I know how he operates, that somehow diminishes his capacity to operate that way.
If God is known to be a perfect source, then like
Oh,
he's
that's
not
a problem. If you describe God as perfect, you're going to run into a lot of problems.
but he is.
Okay.
And I will stand by
What
that.
what do you mean by the word perfect?
I don't know, like I mean, probably how anybody views perfect.
Well, I have a definition of perfect, but I don't know if it's the
Like
same one you would use.
sinless, like sinless.
Well,
Like
sin just refers to doing things that God doesn't do or doesn't want us to do. So saying God is sinless is just saying God isn't not himself. So that's not informative.
but you know what I mean. Like he's perfect.
Well, this is what I mean by the word perfect, and I'll ask if you agree with me. When I say a thing is perfect, what I mean by that is that it is wholly complete, it cannot be further improved, and it needs nor desires anything.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's God.
So if we apply that to God, well,
Mhm.
why did he create the universe then? Clearly he didn't need to, and if he's perfect, he wouldn't have wanted to. So why did he do it?
I mean, I don't know, but I feel like either like that I can this can go both ways. Like one, like it doesn't really matter why he created
It
it,
is.
but I think two, like it's so like it's like an unconditional love. Like he gave us an opportunity to experience his love, and I
That's
think
that's ad hoc because prior to a state of affairs wherein we exist, that can't be his consideration. Like he can't do things for
why
the
not?
benefit
I
of
mean,
things that don't exist. That's absurd.
I think he creates things so like they can worship him.
But why
Why
does
else
he
would he
want to be
create
worshipped?
things? Because he's God.
Well,
Why
he's
wouldn't he
perfect. He
want to
doesn't
worship?
need
Like,
worship. He doesn't desire worship.
but I feel like it's also required. Like, I'm not required. I feel like it's also.
Well, it's clearly
I
not
think it.
required because there was an eternity that took
I
place
know that's
before
why I
he created
corrected.
the universe wherein he wasn't
That's
being
why
worshipped
I.
by anything.
That's why I corrected myself.
So, I mean,
Um,
if God is
requires full
perfect,
payment.
like follow this train of thought if you can. Okay, he doesn't need or want anything. Furthermore, if he's perfect, then the state of affairs wherein only he exists
That's what.
is also
That's why I
perfect.
said it's
Well,
unconditional. Like that's
hold
like it's
on, hold on.
undeserving.
Wait. Well, we're not talking about what we desire or what we want or what we think we deserve. We're talking about God's motivations for doing these things. Okay. If God is perfect, a state of affairs wherein only he exists is a perfect state of affairs. Right? Imagine that I have a jug, and inside of this jug is all the pure water that exists. If I add any more water to that jug, am I improving the quality of the water or am I diminishing the quality of the water?
I know what you're getting at, but
Can you answer
I
my
think
question, please?
Well, no, because you know my answer.
I don't. That's why I asked the question.
Listen, my thing is that, like,
Please answer
okay,
my
well,
question.
wait, repeat that.
If I have a jug and this jug contains all the pure water in existence, if I add any more water to that jug, have I improved the quality of the water or have I reduced the quality of the water?
I mean, see, I don't know if that like relates to that though.
Can you just answer my
I
question?
feel like if it's more, then it's just more. Like, okay.
Well, yeah, so there's more water in the jug, but all the pure water was already in the jug. So if I add any more, that water has to be impure. So I would necessarily be adding impure water to the jug and therefore diluting the purity of the water. I would be reducing it on purpose. So if God, in a state of affairs wherein only he exists, is perfect, for him to arrange anything other than himself to exist would reduce the perfection of that state of affairs, therefore contradicting his quality of perfection. Because perfection only begets perfection. You can't derive imperfect outcomes from perfect means. That's incoherent.
This is hard to like debate because you're just doing it based off of like your own understanding, but we can't really like fathom this as humans. That's the thing.
Okay, so this is something that's starting to irritate me because whenever we're talking about things, right, and I provide you some criticism or
But this is why
contention.
it's hard to debate religion
Well,
because
hold on,
this
listen
is
to
a
me, please.
tricky topic because it's out
Listen to
of
me, please. Listen to me, please. Okay. Whenever we're doing these things and I provide you these sorts of contentions, what you'll say in response to my contentions is, well, I feel like this or that. What you're doing is you're making inferences about the case. You're extrapolating from the world around you and you're inferring as to what God would or wouldn't do or how he behaves or how he operates, so on and so forth. Okay. You're saying, if this is true of the world, this must be true of God, which is a fine inference. Theologians do this all the time. All I'm doing is flipping that inference around. I'm saying, if this is true of God, this must be true of the universe. But you recognize that my version of that inference is actually falsifiable. We can observe what is really the case with our world. And so rather than entertain the inference as I'm entertaining yours, you keep sort of smacking me with these sort of how dare you style ad hominem attacks, which
not
I
it's
don't really
not an I
mind.
dare you. It's just I'm trying to tell
No,
you like
how dare
some
you?
stuff is
You're
just on.
you're complaining about my audacity to try and comprehend why God does the things he does. You're saying I don't have a right to do that, but you're doing the same thing. All you're doing is inferring from the world around us and then making coming to conclusions about God's behavior, attitudes, motivations, etc. You insist that God is good and God wouldn't tell you to murder random babies. Okay, fine, you're free to make that inference. But when I flip that inference around and use contextual evidence from the Bible to suggest opposite, you're telling me that I don't have the right to do that. So this is a complete hypocrisy on your part. It's an overt double standard. All right. If I don't have any right to speculate to the nature of God based on the world around me, neither do you. You have no reason to suspect that God, if he exists, operates in your self interests, that he actually cares about you or loves you or wants what's best for you. That is something that you are attaching to God based on your personal intuition.
But if you want to go, no, I'm also doing that on the Bible.
But so
That's
am
what the
I.
Bible says.
But so am I. I think I've given more biblical support for my position than you've given for yours. I have repeatedly demonstrated that God is a malicious bad actor in the Bible, and based on my observation of the world around me, it does not comport that an omnipotent, omnibenevolent being, all powerful, all good being, who is perfect, would intentionally create an imperfect, flawed, chaotic state of affairs. That is patently counterintuitive. That's not what we would expect to be the case. So if we're comparing two worlds, what
It
would we
wasn't
expect the
flawed
world to
though,
look?
once upon a time.
Well, that's your assumption. You don't know that's the case.
If we're going off of the Bible,
Even if we're going off the Bible, that wasn't the case. Even when God created the garden and he saw that it was good, Adam and Eve still had to eat things. So he still created biological organisms that had to eat, sleep, drink,
okay,
poop,
but why
so on
does
and
that
so forth.
matter?
Well, because ostensibly in heaven, we don't have to do any of those things. When you When you defecate, you're removing toxicity and waste from the body. If God created us perfect, we wouldn't have to do that. That's not something we would expect of a biological organism, which is why Christians believe that we are not flesh in heaven, because flesh is inherently corrupt. God intentionally created flesh, an inherently corrupt substance, to make us out of. When God tells Adam, do not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, what he specifically says to Adam is, on the day you eat from that tree, you will surely die. Then the serpent, whom God also created, comes along and tells them the exact opposite. You will not die, but your eyes will be open. You will know between good and evil, and you will become like God. And what actually happened? Well, when they ate from the tree, they didn't die. They became like God, knowing what is good and what is evil. God even says this in Genesis 3, verse 22. Look, they have become like us, knowing what is good and what is evil. And then he
He
casts
said,
them out of the garden and puts an angel to guard the garden so that they couldn't go back in there and eat from the tree of life, which would have given them immortality. So clearly they weren't immortal prior to eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. They were going to die at some point. There was still some element of decay. So God did not initially create the world perfect. He couldn't have, because he was already perfect. Anything he creates other than himself to exist can't be perfect by definition, because if it was, he wouldn't have been perfect prior to creating it. He would have required this set of conditions to become perfect. But if he's perfect in and of himself, nothing could ever improve his state of affairs. So creating the universe, arranging something for other than himself to exist, would have been a necessary reduction on whatever perfect state of affairs there was prior to that instance. So when I infer, if this is true of a God, this must be true of the universe, you do not have the right to tell me that this is an invalid inference and I can't possibly comprehend God, while simultaneously telling me that you expect God wouldn't behave certain ways because of your personal inferences on the matter. If I can't comprehend or understand his motivations, neither can you, and therefore you forfeit the right to speculate that God is benevolent and loving.